Hello, product people. Welcome to the Product for Product podcast, hosted by Matt Green, data advocate and product manager, and Masha Mikanovsky, product leader and author. Our goal is to serve the product community by helping you find products that can help make your work in product management easier. Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Product for Product podcast.
Welcome back, everyone. On today's episode, Michelle and I are happy to be speaking with product leader Kiron Jones about tools that help navigate and enable product teams in complex environments. So let's go ahead and dive in. How you doing, Kiron?
Very well, thanks, Matt. Great to be here. Thanks for the invitation. And Moshi?
Great to have you. Hey, Michelle.
Hey, Matt. Hey, Kiron. Welcome to the show all the way from England, right?
That's correct. I'm based in London. Yeah.
London. Amazing. One of these days, we should go and visit London and meet all of our guests from over there.
Definitely. More than welcome. We'll show you around.
That will be fun. Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that the title of our show today doesn't even get close to covering the complexity of your environment. So we'll dive into that and then try to understand some of the tools that you might be using for that or looking to use. So maybe some of our audience can actually reach out to you with some advice on that. That will be interesting if that happens. So tell us first about yourself. Who is Kiron, and how did you get to product management?
Yeah, that question. So I'm Kiron. I'm a product manager. I'm a group product manager at Springer Nature. We're a global academic publishing group. And I got into product management. It was a long and winding road, like many people. I started working in communications about 12 years ago. Communications engagement, policy work for a big global funder of medical research, science research called the Wellcome Trust. And I was organizing, big publications. So I did an online science educational magazine for school students and big events. So it was kind of around science and medical research topics and health issues. And, policy consultations to influence government. So it was comms, engagement, policy work. But when I look back on it, it was leading big cross-functional projects and products. And that question of, product, what we're going to do and why, who's our audience, what their needs, and actually coordinating that in a matrix environment, working with designers and writers and working across the business and stakeholders internally and externally was that key skill, which, really does set you up for software product management. I also, after that, did that for a few years, actually worked in the field for a university, did a research project in South Asia. And again, it was trying to establish a research program on agriculture, nutrition and health project. So went to India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, interviewing scientists, farmers, business leaders to try and identify some of the disease challenges that we could do some research on, but it didn't get funding. So then I kind of did a couple of other things, and I worked, tried to set up a coffee importing business with a friend. That was a 0 to 1, and I really love that 0 to 1 entrepreneurship. Identifying suppliers in Asia, customers in the UK, the supply chain, your market segment, all of that. And then I ended up working for the consultancy that he worked for, which was a strategy consultancy. So doing that kind of strategy work, entrepreneurship, and then ended up working for a university after that. And they hired me to redesign their website. And that's when I moved into proper digital product, hiring a team of, designers, developers, etc., to do that, managing the center for a couple of years. And it was just at that point when they hired me about 7 years ago that I realized I wanted to move into product management in software. So I'd done these other things. I like communications, but I didn't love it. I think the thing that you want to do in your career when you really want to study it. And I got that thing around products and software, and that gave me a great opportunity to do a really good digital project there. And then about 5 years ago, I ended up working for some startups. So it was a B2B SaaS anomaly detection system. It's very small, helping them with their go-to-market and refining the product and user journey. And then I was on a startup accelerator myself after that, trying to set up my own company about 4.5 years ago. That was called Antler. And that was a great experience. Again, B2B in Norway, actually, I went there during the pandemic. And first, it's kind of a mini startup MBA, working with their kind of B2B partners because they generally can't innovate very quickly. So they come with their business problems. And this was all in the property, mobility and energy space, right? So we were coming up and pitching ideas and solutions within 48 hours. So doing a lot of that repetition, which was fun, learning what investors want in a kind of startup, a tech startup, how to pitch and how to find a co-founder, because it was a kind of pre-seed, pre-team thing, and develop an idea, pitch for investment, didn't get it. But then all of that kind of experience got me to Springer Nature 4 years ago. So I've been here for 4 years, just under now. And that's the journey. But it was about 7 years ago that I really wanted to move into product. And it took me a little while, those little experiments, did a lot of little experiments. And when I look back, it's those core skills of, strategy, communication, leadership, owning the outcome of something.
Right.
And then getting into that software development lifecycle came a little bit later, but then, that's not that difficult. It's really about ownership and leadership and people and communication. So that's it.
I think one of the I always see it as for me as being lucky, because I did come from software development, but I was lucky to be close to users and understand their needs based on talking with them and just see how they work. So the same way with you, all of the research that you've done, even before that, like you said, going to speak with the scientists in Southern Asia and really understanding what they need and stuff like that, set you up to all the skills that you would need later.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's worth also noting that before I kind of went to university as a mature student, a bit older. So in my previous life, I worked for a software company from the age of 18 for 4 years, and that was selling creative design software, graphic design software. So that was kind of B2C, really kind of speaking to customers every day, all day.
Yes.
So I kind of had that. And then I taught English a couple of times overseas as well. And again, it's like living in other cultures, really understanding. And my degree was in social anthropology. So I've got that real interest in people, communities, audiences, customer needs. So all those skills and teaching and communicating in different cultures and countries, it really, I look back on it and it all makes sense. Those core skills were honed over a very long period of time.
You were doing product. You were doing product before product. You're actually doing product. You were doing the traits.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So it feels natural, right? I'm a product person now. I love software development. This is my profession. It's my craft, and I love it. And I just want to get better at it.
Amazing. So tell us a bit about the company you work for now, and just say it slowly, because I didn't catch the name of the company, even though I've read it before, but I'm not familiar with it from all the way from Canada. So
no problem. So we're a global publisher called Springer Nature, and it's 2 publishing groups. So the Springer Group, who are a German publishing group, they have 2,500 academic journals and tens of thousands of books. With the Nature Group, so Nature's a bit more recognized. It's the #1 science journal in the world. So they have about 50 journals in their portfolio. So what's interesting about Springer Nature, we're a global academic publishing group. And over the last 20 years or so, there's been a series of mergers and acquisitions. So the Springer Group and Nature Group came together 10 years ago. We're 10 years old in May this year. But then within those groups, there's several other publishers. So there's about 8 publishers in that group. We've got Biomed Central, we've got Scientific American, which is more of a science magazine in the US. We've got APRESS, which does software development, computer science, content and books. Palgrave, Humanities, Social Sciences. So we've got the kind of publishing arm, which is publishing over 3,000 journals and books, textbooks, and our customers are university libraries primarily and corporates who do R&D, because a lot of it is health and science publishing. But we also have an educational side of the business as well, Palgrave Macmillan. So it's a lot of educational software and teaching English as a foreign language and textbooks, that kind of thing. And then we've also got our data and analytics products as well, because we've got all this research and we sell those insights and data products to particularly R&D companies, all the kind of big technology companies, life science companies who are leveraging those insights of research for drug agnostic development and innovation ultimately. So they're the kind of that's the kind of business. And I work in the publishing side, so I work on the content. So I've worked on the journal articles and books, and now I'm as a kind of reading experience, and now I look after the pre-submission author experience. So it's in the content business itself, And yeah, we're a global firm. We've got digital hubs in several countries, but we've got offices in, over 100 countries because we sell to universities in each region and country. So yeah, global firm, hubs, but digital hubs in like Berlin, Heidelberg, Lisbon, and London, and India as well, and Pune. Yeah, so that's the business. It's a fascinating business. It's a mix of old, it's Nature and Springer are 150 plus years old, is more as publishers and as journals. But then we're a new company as well. So we've got a mix of kind of lots of different cultures from the mergers and, historic business with a reputation to uphold. And that's the kind of where our credibility comes from. But also we're a new company as well. And the mergers have led to lots of decisions to kind of become one company. And that's some of the really interesting digital work that we're doing as well.
Yeah.
Cool.
Let's dive a bit into that, because
Sure.
I could only imagine the complexity this could be from all of those mergers and acquisitions, etc. Mainly because each one of them will come with its own legacy, whatever they used, processes and technologies and products and whatever it is. And then when you try to either keep them separate or merge them together, be more efficient and stuff like that. I used to work for a financial organization that was it also has a strategy of M&A, but and I was responsible for the merchant acquisition, and it was only a merger of 6 companies, and it was a mess. So I could only imagine, with the volume that you're talking about. So tell us a bit about that, and how do you deal with that from a product perspective, and maybe some tools that you might use to help you with that.
Sure. Yeah. So there's a couple of really interesting challenges that the business is going through. And the first one is this result of all these mergers and acquisitions. So lots of different publishers essentially under one group now, and the different cultures that brings, the different technology, business models, configurations, tech stacks, etc., design of the websites, and the fragmentation of the experience for the user as well. We want users to know that we are a portfolio company, because if they're wanting to publish with us, they can publish in several of our different kind of brands, if you like. So, that is the fragmentation that has come from that history is significant. We're in different time zones, global firm, that leads to its challenges as well, working with people, in Asia, then in the US. But really, it's that fragmentation is a big challenge that we're trying to overcome. The second challenge, and this is really fascinating, it's the business model change that we're going through. So just for context, a lot of people won't know this, but in the previous world, our business was a subscription business to our content. So primarily, university libraries would buy site licenses for their patrons, their student, their staff. It's a B2B2C model. So we have thousands of journals, and universities and corporates, they will subscribe to packages based on kind of subject areas, but bundles of our journals, if not all of them, depending on the university. And so it's a B2B2C. And essentially, we are a content business. We focus on growing usage of our content, people discovering our content, accessing that content, and justifying, therefore, on a yearly basis, the increase in our subscription. So, our websites were content databases, and it was about growing usage, doubling down on that to justify revenue increase.
Right.
But what's happened in the last 20 or so years is that, science research and academic research is moving towards open access. Now, for your audience who don't understand what an open access is, because it's not intuitive, and it's not intuitive to actual researchers as well, and it becomes a problem, which I'll explain in a bit. But open access means that instead of having a paywall, so in a subscription model, if I go to a website, a content website, one of our content websites, and I don't have access through the subscription, they can't identify me through an institution that I'm part of, which has bought access. You'd hit a paywall. So it's that classic paywall, and it stops people accessing unless you have access. Now, in that model, you pay for usage, but we don't charge to publish. So authors publish for free. Those journals and the books, we don't charge for that publishing process. We charge for the usage. Okay. However, in the open access model, and it came from primarily actually the funders. So most academic and scientific research is funded by government funding bodies, or philanthropic organizations like the Wellcome Trust. And I used to work for them 10 years ago. So, and there's a movement, there is a kind of thinking that, research should not be behind a paywall. It is generally funded by the public purse through taxation and, government funding bodies or philanthropic organizations, and it's for public good. So this transition to open access means that there is no paywall. However, what that means for us as a publisher is that we have to charge the author to publish. Okay, so it becomes the author is now the customer. The reader, the institution who buys a subscription is no longer the customer, and it's not a B2B2C, and we really care about usage to justify the subscription. We care about the author, and previously they were not loved as a kind of user in that kind of whole marketplace, and that author journey was not given the attention that it needed. But now the author becomes the customer, and that's really significant because, for a start, the author life cycle, when you're publishing an academic journal, it's not, you don't one day think, I'm going to publish today, write the paper today, find a journal today and do it in one day. It happens over several months period. It can happen over a 9-month period, right? So that journey is much longer. And to make it even more complex, authors in research institutions, universities, they don't use their own money. They're using money from a research grant, from the institution themselves. So, one of the challenges that we've got is the focus now is on the author. We need to create a best-in-class author experience, which involves many, many touch points over a long period of time. Okay, which means that one of the challenges is that we've got another challenge is that our users don't log in. We don't have a public personal profile for most of our users. So, if you YouTube and your Spotify account, they know your whole reading and usage history. They can personalize and recommend the experience for you, which is great. With our world, we don't, in that subscription world, particularly, we don't force you to log in. We just identify users through generally an IP range, right? Mm-hmm. So, we don't know much about these authors, and we need to, because we need to personalize the experience across many touch points over a long period of time. And actually, what we've done to make it even more interesting from a business perspective, we're flipping these subscriptions with the universities into publishing credits, essentially. So that we say, hey, instead of charging you for usage, we're going to give you credits for your staff to publish, right? So then what we have to try and do is connect authors. We need to identify what institution they're from, mm-hmm. And say, hey, if they we think you're from this institution, you might have access to funding for this, because we need to get them through, and because they won't often know what open access is, some of the more junior researchers, right, that they need to pay. So again, it's a real kind of thorny UX data problem. It's connecting, identifying people, and so it becomes a lot more sophisticated than an old school just content platform, of which we're like Springer NatureLink is probably the biggest in the world, mm-hmm. to actually an experience which we're wanting to have many touch points. We need structured data. We need to connect with authors across in many locations across the life cycle. So this transition to open access mm-hmm. is fascinating and creating a lot of challenges. And what it also means is now our competitors can actually publish our content. So mm-hmm. because it's open access, our major competitor can actually publish their own content and steal our readership to their website and build a more long-term relationship with them. So now our platforms we need to create a best-in-class reading experience, so people want to come and read on our website, because we don't want to lose them, because the more time they're on our website, the more chance that some of them will become authors and will get those author fees. So, a combination of the mergers and acquisitions, creates all this fragmentation, different websites, technology, different designs, and then the transition to a fundamental business model shift creates a need for a different kind of user experience, different customer, connecting dots and data, and creating loyalty and engaging with authors now, and really that focusing on that lifetime value of an author, right? So
barrier of entry.
It's I could go on forever, but these are the two serious challenges.
Yeah. Is it like a product-led growth approach, like barrier of entry for authors to like, hey, get my article up and running, like get it up quickly, or trying to think about the best onboarding experience that you've had to pivot now
You're trying already to solve this problem, Matt.
Yeah, no,
No.
it's a fair question. So authors want different things depending on their need at that time. Sometimes they'll want to publish really quickly. So time is really important. So imagine the publishing process. You submit a manuscript, there'll be a review process with an editor, a reviewer, and that can be back and forth and take a lot of time. And to complicate things even more, most of the time, our reviewers and editors, we don't pay them. It's a crazy business. If you took the logic of our business model to another industry, it wouldn't make any sense. But in the world of research, it's editors and reviewers, it's a pro bono. You're doing it for the good of your academic discipline and research, right? So we're relying on people to help with that, editing and, submission process for free. But so, some authors will want something really quickly turn around because they might have a conference, they want to get promoted and they want to get their paper out, or it's a really hot topic. So we've actually come up with new publishing brands that focus on speed, right, to really target that customer need of an author perspective. Some, like Nature, which is the highest impact factor, most prestigious journal in the world, completely career enhancing, that they might want to focus on the impact factor and the quality and the reputation of the journal. So there's different customer needs. Sometimes it could be the editor-in-chief of that journal, or the special editor. We have special editions, we call them collections. So they might want to publish with that leader in that field. And so we have different, authors have different customer needs. It might be speed, it might be the audience they want to communicate to. It could be a niche journal or a broader journal. It could be the editor who's publishing. So, and we kind of try and serve all of those needs.
Tailor those experiences across the board. Gotcha.
Yeah.
But you mentioned open as well. As we talked about on the show before, to bring this in to AI as well, you're opening up this information across the board. So AI comes into it as well. When AI can pick up these articles and pick up these publishings now, they're not behind a paywall. So are you addressing that as well when it comes to publishing this information?
Yeah, so AI has been a hot topic for a long time. The last few years, certainly since OpenAI really kicked off at the end of 2022. So obviously LLMs, there's a lot of benefit for a content business. And so some of the things that we really care about is exactly that, is we're actually changing our open access policies because we were fully OA, which meant that anyone could use it even for commercial use. But we're restricting that a little bit as well, because we are getting a lot of companies just wanting to take all of our content and use it for commercial benefit. And it's a debatable topic in some ways. It's a business decision that we've made, and we spent a long time trying to figure out what is the best thing to do for science, for research, and the business. But certainly, we've spent a long time coming up with our policies for that and trying to restrict and stop people maybe nefariously getting our content and to use an LLMs, because not all of it is open access, right? We still have a large historic amount. We've got this hybrid model, right? We're still going to have subscription to some journals and an historic amount of content. So people are trying to, break into our websites. I'm part of content protection initiatives. I'm a product lead for that, which is about understanding who's trying to access our content. Are they, a subscriber? How much of it is mass downloading and just scripted? So really trying to figure out what to do there and choose the right tooling. We're testing a web application firewall software to try and identify and block this kind of behavior. And the challenge with that software, to talk about tools, a web application firewall, is that the problem is that we have to give access to users, and because people are entering through an IP range, we can't identify the individual user. So blocking a whole IP would block potentially legitimate usage and customers. Right. So unless the challenge here is with a tool like that, unless everyone is logged in and we can identify each user, you can't use a web application firewall software to block mass downloaded scripted use from nefarious users. So this, one of the challenges here around protecting our content is it's actually really hard to block it and stop it because people don't log in. Only about 5% of our users have a profile, and we are creating experiences and incentives for people to sign in, have a profile, because we can give them a richer, personalized experience. But there's an example there with OA. But also, we're using OA a lot with our processes. We're a publisher, right? So we can really automate a lot of our workflows with our AI, and particularly because we own the content, we are creating summaries. So we use we're creating summarizations for readers. So readers come to read an article, they don't have a lot of time, and they're quickly trying to evaluate whether that's relevant for their needs, the article. And what we're doing is creating summarizations to try and reduce that time to insight, help them evaluate it even quicker. Again, it's about creating that best-in-class user experience and to make them want to come back to the platform. So in many ways, we're in a great position to use AI. One of the projects I led a couple of years ago was creating machine learning generated and AI generated reading recommendations. And we spent a year and a half doing that because ultimately we want to grow usage. And the way that we do that is to get more people into the site. So reach, that's SEO, driving traffic into the site, making the content discoverable. And then once they're on a piece of content, it's that average usage per session. So providing relevant onward journeys. And a great way to do that is to provide connected recommendations. So we built those as well using MLs and AI. But lots of stuff we're doing. And the impact of AI is in different, good, bad, and everywhere.
In between.
So let's talk a bit about some of those challenges and maybe some tools that help you, navigate them or relieve some of them or reduce some of the risks there. Which one do you want to start with?
Yeah, sure. So I know part of my group, I at the moment, there's a few. So we're going for a huge transformation program, right? So because of this transition to open access, and because we are a merger of many companies, we're having to change our website experiences. So like I say, we had many publishing websites. We had about 7, and we're reducing that 7 websites into 2. Okay, so that's what I'm leading at the moment, switching off and retiring 5 of those legacy smaller imprints into our major platforms, bringing HLink. That is causing a lot of challenges because you've got different companies and different stakeholder needs across different businesses. So in terms of tools, the biggest challenge here is getting alignment on how we're going to do this and the roadmap and the steps that we're going to take to switch off these legacy sites. And to do that, we've got to move all the content over from other sites. So that's the articles and the book series, which I've been doing for the last few years. And some of the challenges there are around taking something in a different design, in a different template into our standard template on the major website. And that just involves a lot of creating clarity and aligning with stakeholders who work for a particular publishing brand, who care deeply about those bits of content and the experience that it offers. And then we're moving all the journals from some of the major websites now. And that is a huge amount of work, thousands of journals and all the related content from those websites to the major website as well. And then in order to switch off those websites, we're having to create brand hubs. And that's what we're doing at the moment. So that replacing that homepage experience from those 5 other websites onto the major website. So we're creating 5 or 6 of those. Therefore, on the major website, you're going to have all the content, all the journals, all the submission journeys, essentially for authors, for books, for journals, and the reading of the content with the brand experience as well. And I guess some of the challenges is really just getting alignment on how we're going to do it, because it involves changing the fundamental design. There's a lack of different features and experiences on those other websites than our standard one, and we're trying to essentially harmonize the experience. And that's very difficult because people don't like change. It's essentially things will be different, right? And getting buy-in for that change. Yeah. And there's a perception, there's this thinking that, there are these features on our current website. What's going to happen? And that mentality of thinking of, we have those features there. And, a lot of stakeholders who aren't in product, they think about features instead of, and the goal is really, and the challenge is to talk about user needs and capabilities and actually the outcome that the user need that is needed in the business outcome. And it's done in a different way. So moving away and communicating away from features mindset into a, user need and value and capability mindset, and getting alignment around what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, when we're going to do it, and who's going to do what. And that is the biggest challenge that I have, is around aligning around the roadmap and sequencing the work when you've got marketing who have a serious stake in these journals because they're driving lots of campaigns there. and this movement of content and closing down these websites has a significant impact. And the publishing directors and editors who own those journals, ultimately, that's the content that's their livelihood.
Yeah.
So that working across the business and getting alignment between publishing,
Right.
editorial, and marketing and product is a super challenge. And just communication. And most people are remote, we're all on video calls, and that constant community. These decisions can take months and months to drive alignment around. So using basic tools like, I had an important meeting on Thursday around the roadmap, and it was a mixture of Miro and a screenshot of an Excel sheet with, a kind of, 3-stage process with lots of, different milestones, right? And I was pulling my hair out trying to think out what's the most effective way to do this. And it worked in the end, but there's some of the challenges is this constant communication and to different audiences. So that's one of them, and there's loads more I can talk about, but maybe I can pause there.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of challenges there that many of us in our audience can, associate with and stuff like that. To me, I'm sure everyone has things that are more, urgent to hear about or more interesting to hear about. Some of the things you mentioned are technical in nature, like the conversion and stuff like that. But the stakeholder management and just the vast number of stakeholders that you have over there and the change that they have to go through. So how do you have a tool that you use to help you with that?
Yeah, so I think a tool can be just understanding strategies around alignment. And a recent book I mentioned to you before we started the recording is Aligned by Bruce McCarthy, right? And that is this kind of absolutely integral, those strategies in there.
And we did have them on the show, so if anyone is interested, go and check the episode. It was a few episodes ago.
And that's really, that stuff is gold, really, because and I've seen Bruce talk in person in London a few months ago as well. He was promoting the book, but really just understanding how to find the right stakeholders and really understanding who the stakeholders are. I think stakeholder mapping is really critical. When I started in this new remit, that took me a while. One of the big challenges in a big global firm is like, who's responsible for what? Who are those stakeholders? But that's super critical, and really understanding what their motivations are and how they can influence product decisions. So that's a real challenge, understanding stakeholders and their needs, because different parts of the business care about different things. And you as a product leader is really about understanding the business risk and the impact of change, and really understanding what change is needed and how to communicate that and kind of facilitate that. So really building an understanding of the stakeholders and their needs and motivations, and building alignment with them is just super complex. It takes a long time. I wish I could just do it in one meeting, and it just takes ages and ages. And I was thinking about tools before this call. I spend so much time just trying to set up follow-up meetings with people. I would love an agent in Microsoft Teams just to be able to set up the next meeting, and people's calendars are blocked, but they're not really busy, they're blocking time out. If you could just say, I need these people in the next week, and it could go and find 2-3 times, or it could contact people with a blocked calendar and say, on my behalf, that would just save me several hours a week.
Yes,
honestly, really, if I could shave 10% of my working time, that would just give me more time to think more deeply about.
So did you find a tool like that?
No, but I was listening to our friend Ross Webb's product board seminar workshop last night with Graham Reed, and he's built a really cool AI agent, and some of it is for more just thinking about the business outcomes and reporting, etc. But for that, no. But I just do think that Microsoft Teams should be able to fix this. If everyone's using Teams, if everyone's using calendar and email, you should be able to tell it what to do, and it should come back with you. I don't think it's that far away, but just being able to set up meetings in a big global firm, lots of people, hundreds of people, thousands of people, and go through calendars, and all it is a few data points. It's this period of time, these people, and then some communication back and forth. I hope someone builds this, because I think there is a serious need for this. It's not
Mm.
just me and not this company that suffers with this problem. So,
Interesting.
but I will
Interesting.
speak to Ross about it as well because he's really deep into this space now. So
As a group product manager, I was curious about how you keep your team, your product team. I've had conversations where you think about the culture and thinking about the business stakeholders more broadly, but there's also play within your team, whether that be product managers, designers, working with
mm.
engineering. How do you keep all alignment amongst the technical side?
Yeah. So I have regular catch up with my direct reports, product managers, and I also have a product team squad as well that I lead. So it's constant communication. And so Monday morning I will set the agenda for the week. What are the goals and outcomes for that week, and obviously defining the roadmap and OKRs and the strategy and communicating that a lot. It's a mix of different Slack channels, in-person meetings, video calls, different. We have different kind of share backs, etc. So it's a lot of writing decks, meetings. But one thing that I do think would help is, and saw someone on LinkedIn do this, and this is kind of what Ross's AI agent was doing, is just creating weekly summaries of things, like a tool to be able to summarize the decisions that have been made, the meetings that I've had, and how decisions are pivoting as a consequence because of new learnings in that week, and then communicating those out. I think things go wrong when you're not communicating important things regularly enough. And in this kind of role at this scale, it really is about doing that effectively. And I certainly think I could do better at that, and some tools to help me with that. And I guess one of the challenges, I'm a mix of, I still like pen and paper, right?
Mhm.
I'm old school. I think it's good for the brain to write and by
It
hand.
is. It is.
And I'm in this kind of inflection point in my life and career. Like, do I just go fully digital? Because I saw a really cool example on LinkedIn about a week ago, a guy who's using a tool for his whole task management in the week, and then he's automating a weekly report, right? And so things like that. I mean, might it help to go fully digital with my kind of workflows and task management and help with automating a lot of those kind of updates and reports? I think that could give me some leverage and a bit more time to focus on some of the more strategic stuff and analysis and get stuff like that. But it's constant communication, a lot of meetings, unfortunately, more than I'd like, but still I get time as well. And yeah, it's just thinking about the right channel. It's not easy, but
Yeah.
I'm thinking of ways to improve. Does
Mhm.
that answer the question?
That's great. Yeah, shared understanding, making sure that everybody's aligned. Because
Mm,
like we talked about, like in a digital world where everybody's spread out,
yeah,
misalignment and conversations happen in other calls which you're not a part of. And there's
yeah,
always like, well, if you don't need to be a part of the call, don't be a part of the call. But there's obviously something that comes up in there that you miss, and if that doesn't make it to you, that information make it to you efficiently or at
yeah.
all, there's a chance for misalignment, and the shared understanding isn't maintained.
Exactly. I'm in this situation where I feel like I'm constantly communicating and updating, and still messages don't land.
That's
And
right.
it's really frustrating. It's like I care about this. It's like I'm thinking about this all the time.
Yeah,
Yep.
It's what
yeah.
I worry about, and it still can't get it right. And would tools help? Like audio. I don't know. Like summarizing the meetings. I don't use a summary on Teams for every meeting, and that could help. I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah, we talked in the past about async communication tools,
Mhm.
and one of the things that came up was that it's also about the people using it. So my worry always, and it goes towards that thing that you just said, is that even if we have all the summaries in the world, or we send all the communication in the world, if the people on the other side don't read it, don't consume it, or they have different language for
Mm,
what language we're using, then
mm,
it's still not going to go
Mhm.
across. So it's an issue of it's a cultural issue many times, and it's a personal issue many times. And that's where I am more on the side of, yes, AI can do all of this, but if it is just doing it for the sake of doing it, but it doesn't get the outcome we're trying to get, then it's hard to still,
yeah,
it's not going to solve the problem.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, but maybe doing better at templating things and having some templates that could be reused quickly. That would be a good investment in my time potentially, and using a ChatGPT or something a bit more to write summaries and maybe create some templates.
Yeah, no, I think this definitely all of this can help for sure. In what I usually advocate for in parallel is to also try to impact the culture and see how people from the rest of the company, can consume the data that I'm creating, right? Or, whatever is created there. No, that's cool. I definitely see how this can be, a life work in progress, because because of all of those challenges that you mentioned earlier. But it also sounds quite exciting because there is a lot of work there to be done. There is, I'm sure, a lot of innovation coming up from the work that you're doing and also from the industry, just to see what other people are building and bringing it over.
Absolutely. I mean, no, it's a fascinating place to work. It's a great place to work, and the challenges are really big. And we are innovating, and we're part of a big transformation program that's been going on for the last 3 or 4 years now. And work wouldn't be interesting if everything worked really well, right? What would be the point? We're problem solvers. We like to solve problems, create clarity, improve things. That's what we're here for. So no, it's nice to be in an industry that it's not. We're academic publishing. It's not cutting edge, right? We are a bit behind. We're creating now a personalized experience. Engagement with our users is much more important. Different touch points. So it's really we've got to do a lot. There's a lot of really interesting stuff to do that. And I'm enjoying it. It's great work, and there's a lot more to do, and there's tons more challenges. I mean, we could talk about. I mean, I look after the CMS, the content management system as well, and that so many challenges like merging all these different content websites together, which have different content management systems for them. It is causing there's a lot of challenges with that because they're made for different use cases, and we're trying to unpick some of the historical decisions that are made as well around these systems that we're using, and that's causing a lot of challenges with this kind of consolidation of the platforms, and also now because we want to have experiences that touch different the user at different points. We need more structured data, so CMSs that allow for structured data so we can actually reuse that content. So CMS has got wanting to create this personalized experience across different touch points for an author that has a very long life cycle means that, and consolidating all these websites and different experiences, this humongous data problems and system challenges, and some can't be automated away,
But one of the interesting things about CMS, I mean, in your case, it's one of the tools that you're creating for your users. But CMS also, in some instances, can be used or is used by product managers, even for, creating, I don't know, documentation or for communication with other people. SharePoint, in a way, is a CMS system. And a lot of us are using SharePoint as a product to create, whatever documents we need internally for our organization. We never actually covered CMS for product managers, but is there maybe just one thing over there that you think could be interesting for our audience to hear about related to CMS?
Yeah, so I mean, just touching on the two things. So the content management systems that we use have different use cases. It can be for marketers to use on, say, journal pages and to, update content about the journals, kind of new relevant content to our customers. Or it can be for editors who actually look after those journals and to update the content about the journal. Or it could be other editors to use for news content on a more news site like nature.com, which has news content as well. And what we're doing at the moment, I mean, for the audience, I mean, we've built content management systems for one task, but then things evolve and the strategy evolves, and then it needs to be used for another task. And it's trying to bend those tools that are maybe made for one thing to others, and that's super challenging. So then it's about finding use cases that we want to apply in lots of different places and choose the right tool for that can be a challenge. There's historic decisions that are a real challenge as well. And yeah, like having to migrate content from one CMS to another because we're moving those journals onto another platform. We just can't automate it because it wasn't designed to do that. It's got different formatting, and that just means we have to hire lots of people for months to do manual work. So just headache stuff working at this scale and this complexity. But maybe something a bit more interesting for the audience is, from a product manager perspective, is use of Confluence. So, I'm sure you're aware of Confluence. I think it's a part of Jira. And, so I'm very interested in kind of product operations, right? And the kind of, facilitating communication and documentation is obviously super important in product work for this exact reason that we spoke about a minute ago around, alignment, getting people on the same page, making, people are aware of this, decisions that have been made and where we are in a particular project at that moment. We have Confluence, but it's the adoption of Confluence, tools like that I just don't think it's adopted. So yes, there is this content CMS, ultimately it's content management system, which is for product teams, right? And yes, we can use it to update about the status, but it's just not being adopted. And I think the real challenge is getting adoption for these systems that help with documentation. Graham Reed did a really good presentation in Ross's Top Prods community that you presented where we met, and about his system for that. And I spoke to the head of product operations person here about how we can implement his framework, because I was really excited by what he's done. And we're not there yet. It's going to take another year or two. But, I think it is really challenging to create these documentation systems that get used, because people are communicating on Slack, Teams, email, video call. You've got threads in Teams now. We've got slides. We've got Google Slides. We've got Microsoft Slides. We've got Word documents. We've got Google Docs. And to create one source of truth that everyone uses across all these channels, it's really hard. That's this is a challenge, and we haven't solved it.
Absolutely. Amazing. Matt, do you have any other questions for Kiron?
Early on in the conversation, you mentioned data and analytics as part of one of the arms that you have that you focus on. So maybe you could speak to that, maybe the tools that you use from a data analytics perspective.
Sure. So as a company, we have a lot of data products and insights. So I don't look after those products, but in terms of, we use it obviously in products. We're big websites, and we use a lot of data and leverage a lot of data to make decisions and understand our customers and their journeys and how they're going through our funnels, etc., and through the website and how they're converting. We're using. I think there's quite an interesting story here actually. So we're using Google Analytics now. But 3 years ago, we got Amplitude for a couple of years. And I was the real proponent of that. I was really pushing that because it's a great product analytics tool. Google is more of a marketing tool. Okay. And we hired Amplitude, and honestly, it took us months. We had to hire an external consultancy to onboard us to Amplitude, because our business is so complex and the data is so hard to access and find. And again, we got it up and running, took a long time. I honestly think we were the worst customer for Amplitude ever. Oh, poor people. I really like working with them, but we were difficult because we're just such a complex business. And then I think it just didn't get enough use by product managers. And again, there's that kind of friction that, it takes a long time to learn these software tools. It's not as self-serve as you'd like. It's a great tool, don't get me wrong, but I really do think in product tools like this, having good data analysts, which we have a few great ones, but having that support from data analysts to really help you get information really quickly is really important. And we ended up retiring, not using Amplitude after 2 years, and just going to Google Analytics, to the new one, and we spent a lot of time setting that up and customizing it for our needs, because it's a business this big with a lot of marketing, it just makes sense to use one tool. So we got rid of Amplitude. We're now on GA. We've had lots of training around that, and it's still difficult in my kind of role. We don't need to use it every day. I think having that support from analysts really does help. But that's it was an interesting story about trying to use Amplitude and get it on board, and it didn't create the value that we wanted, unfortunately. It wasn't as easy to use as possible.
Time is a commodity that product managers don't have a lot of. And, like you say, if you have an analyst that's looking at that stuff, that's great. But I think AI eventually could become that, like, hey, I've noticed an anomaly, I've noticed something, and if it can publish that stuff, we mentioned like the source of truth. If again, that's just another element of all this other stuff of, hey, you need to bring this in line with what my daily job. Like I'm working, having conversations, having meetings, and if somehow, an Amplitude or something like that can publish that kind of stuff while you're working and be like, hey, check this out, go check this out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's about setting up that brain and connecting all those dots through an agent, right? And that's what
Yeah.
Ross's presentation last night was about, right? It's creating that brain. If you can spend the time to take your business strategy, your goals, your metrics, the objectives that you're working towards, all the kind of data through whatever tool, whether it's GA or Amplitude, and then it can be running reports 2-3 times a week daily,
Yep.
and you're coming into work with, here's a problem, right? That it would be next level, where it's
right.
just feeding you, create that system. And if companies can invest that time to do that, I think product management could be really exciting for product people and organizations, and just be much more effective.
100%.
Yeah. Well, amazing. This was really interesting. And I do see, how your work is cut out for you, where there's so many things that you can do in the future. And just looking at your roadmap will be really interesting, but I'm sure this is not something we can have a look at. But where can people reach out to you if they want to learn more or try to help you with the things you're doing?
Sure. Available. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always open to speaking to product people who are interested in tech or startups or anywhere where I've worked. I'm open. So please reach out. I love to connect and build my network. And I'm always, I'm always keen to speak to people who are passionate about products and digital products and
Amazing.
startups. So just reach out. Love to connect.
And you also mentioned Ross and Top Prod. So that's a community that Ross is running, and that's where we met.
Absolutely.
You and I. So
remember
if
that
people are
community.
over there, then reach out to Kiron through the community.
Sure, and I'm always going to meetups in London as well. I'm really quite plugged into the London product scene, so I go to Product Tank, Product Group London, a few other ones as well. So I know a lot of the kind of product people in London, and so maybe see you down there.
Amazing.
Great.
Thank you so much, Kiron. Appreciate you coming on the show.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you to all listeners, and we'll talk to you everybody next time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you to all the listeners. We really appreciate the feedback and support. Please leave us a review to help others find the show on Apple or Spotify or anywhere else you're listening to the show.